edition. I'm your host, Joe Gilbert. Once again with Taylor Jedrzejek. Taylor, how are we doing?
Pretty good. Been a nice. What are we on? 2 week break now,
2 week
almost,
break, yeah.
almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Didn't have to think about the Browns all that much.
Yeah, it was nice kind of watching just football and keep
Yeah,
the Browns
yeah.
out of your
The
mind,
the
right?
the slate of playoff games we got was certainly a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Historic comebacks will do that,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
other than that, I mean,
Yeah.
football season never truly ends. By the time we get to the Super Bowl, it's going to be about a month out from free agency.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's crazy. Yeah. The NFL schedule is just nonstop. Then you get to the Senior Bowl and combine,
Draft,
and
and then
then mini
what is it?
camps.
Schedule release.
Yeah, schedule release, mini camps, then training camp, and then your season starts.
Yeah, and I mean this year we have the added bonus of Hall of Fame stuff because Joe Thomas is definitely going to be inducted.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah,
busy off season.
Yep, and we'll be here for you. So we're talking about before we get to the news of the day and why we're here. This broadcast is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. For first-time depositors, use WFNY and they'll match up to $100. It's a great platform for if you're tired of the DFS salary system. Tons of different game types, drafts every night, and for every sport. Use WFNY at checkout, and your first deposit will be matched up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy. Okay, so we are here for. It was a pretty quick process. We were kind of talking about it after the season, where we would kind of go in during the process to see the candidates, but they kind of hired them really quickly. So the Cleveland Browns hired officially today Jim Schwartz as the defense coordinator, taking over for Joe Woods. He's highly experienced, obviously. He's been a head coach, defense coordinator all over the place. Past few, at least last year, he was the defensive assistant. I think that's his official title.
Senior defensive assistant or something. Yeah.
Senior, yes, at the Tennessee Titans. So, initial thoughts, Taylor. What's your initial thoughts from kind of the hire, the group that it came from, and all that?
I mean, I think my initial thoughts are the same as I put in the chat yesterday, and then I said to about all my different friend groups and group chats and all that. This is about the highest floor move that the Browns could have made. I don't think there's any real downside to bringing in Jim Schwartz. I think if you really want to get into the buzzwords, analytically, he was the safest pick because the bottom line you're going to get with him is better than most other defensive coordinators you could have possibly hired. Yes, there was bigger splash in bringing in Brian Flores, but I think, if you bring in Flores, you might be right back at this again next January. If the Browns end up with a top 10 defense and in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So Jim Schwartz, and that's not to knock him at all. Jim Schwartz probably doesn't have much run left as a head coaching candidate. His last head coaching interview was actually in Cleveland a few years ago. So you have a guy that's going to be here for a few years, maybe the duration of this whole staff. I mean, obviously, if Stefanski's the coach here for the next 15 years, I would doubt that. But you have a guy that's locked in for the next few years, and if this works out, then you've made a good hire. And analytically, statistically, he's been a pretty good coach the last few seasons. I'm trying to find the stats for the Titans. Titans this year are a little weird because they spent most of the season hurt, but 2021 when they went to playoffs, they were a good defense. He was the coach of a defense that won the Super Bowl and got real hot at the end of a season. few years ago in Philly. I mean, obviously they gave up a lot of points to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, but that was Tom Brady at the peak of his strength, his old man strength. So it's it's a solid hire. The Browns have a long way to go in bringing guys in. I think you probably have. I'm trying to figure out how many starters you have right now on defense. I'd say you have anywhere between 4 and 6 starters set on defense right now. Probably more than 4, 5 to 7. I would say actually. Obviously, you need a lot of help in the middle, but this coach who has coached so many other great defensive tackles in his 10 years and other places is not going to settle for 130th and 131st out of 128 tackles in the league.
Yeah. So my thoughts. I really like the list. There was 5. I think it ended up being 4 or 5. I think. Let's see. So they interviewed Jim Schwartz. They did Brian Flores.
Sean Desai. They interviewed another guy.
A guy from the Eagles, I think it was.
Forget his name.
Yeah. So 4. It was. I thought it was a good list. It kind of
certainly helped that all those guys were out of the playoffs.
That definitely
that expedited the process.
Yeah. It was a nice threading of different. It was a really well kind of diverse group. You had kind of the hot name. I would say Brian Flores would be probably the hottest name in terms of coordinator, defense coordinator. You had the experience at high floor, as you said, for Jim Schwartz. Then you had the kind of hot shot name, hopefully up and coming in Desai, and then
high ceiling.
High ceiling, yes, he would be a high ceiling. Probably with Philadelphia guy too. So I really like that they kind of spread it out there. They didn't. There's a lot of people that were thinking that he would be afraid to hire someone with experience of head coaching. Like that was some stupid.
No, that's another topic we talked about. That's a real loser mentality. If you're afraid to hire a head coach because he has hire a coordinator because he has head coaching experience, then why do you have your head coach in the first place?
Yeah, and you have no self-confidence in yourself. Another So that was always a dumb. It was one of those radio topics. Overall, I like the kind of the group they had, and then I think they went with a very good choice. As you said, he's done it before. We're not going to go through the kind of the Joe Woods phase where it seemed like he was learning on the job. Schwartz will come in and know what to do. He knows how to coach defense. He knows how to head coach. So that's even a bigger plus too. And they needed a guy that kind of. It seemed like Joe Woods was kind of struggling with the people part of it. It seemed like his communication skills and kind of the leadership, because there was just so many voices coming out of that defensive locker room, and it just seemed like there wasn't one single voice. So I'm thinking it's a pretty good shot that Jim Schwartz can kind of get that group together into one, because he's done it as a head coach. He's done it as defense coordinator. So that's one of the kind of the bigger pluses I got.
Having someone that's going to garner the respect of the locker room is big right now, because you're not. This isn't a defense that was so bad that you need to jettison 8 players and bring in a whole bunch of new guys and build from the ground up. I mean, you have a foundation.
Right.
You have a bunch of guys that either will start for you or be in the rotations. So it's not about there's a unit there. So getting the respect of that unit is key in becoming a better defense, and having someone with the track record and the just respect of Jim Schwartz is going to go a long way, especially for someone like Myles Garrett, who seems to be able to sniff that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, it seemed they needed a good communicator, because I think that was probably that had to be the number one problem on that defense. It just seemed like there was no single communication. It seemed like voices were coming all over the place. On the field, you could see so many times. How many times did we see the Spider-Man pointing at each other? Like,
Yeah.
like that happened every game. Like it was. I'm wondering if Kevin was actually putting that a lot of thought into that, getting somebody that can kind of take a hold of that defense and be the leader that they need in there.
I mean, if he didn't notice it, then he wasn't doing his job as a head coach.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So yeah, that was my number one point for him, and then just based off his experience is another big key here. We know he has a track record of fixing defenses and making them pretty good, and that was like I was intrigued by Desai from Seattle, but it's one of those things where you're kind of throwing your eggs in the basket of another Joe Woods kind of
another up and comer that
right up and comer
you
that
don't
doesn't have that
know.
experience. Yeah, the unknown is kind of scary there, especially on a team that's ready to go. Like you need to win next year. Like
Yeah,
you need to get this
Desai
defense
would be
going.
fine if you're building from the ground up with a defense.
Right. Yeah. Like if you were hiring Kevin Stefanski 4 years ago or 3 years ago, that would have been a good choice.
Yeah,
Like,
and that was basically what the Joe Woods hire was.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So that was
which might have been why they didn't do it.
that exactly. Yeah. They probably really liked him, but they probably like we got to go with that high floor guy.
You got to
Yeah,
get someone that's established.
Yeah. That we've seen.
This isn't
before.
a team that's trying to find where it needs to be. This is a team that needs to get there quickly.
Yes.
And this isn't like Desai was not a get there quickly hire. He was he needs to like if Carolina per se hires a new head coach and they want a defensive coordinator and they like him,
yeah,
like that's an option because one, Carolina has a pretty good defense, but
right.
Two, that like you'd be building a whole new staff. You're not just replacing one piece.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into kind of Jim Schwartz.
Press conference was fun.
Yeah, the press conference was pretty good. He is you could tell the leadership kind of communication skills are off the charts with him. He can ramble. he can tell stories. Like
he took control of that room.
He did. Yeah, I think he
completely ignored questions in the first 10 minutes.
Right. I think he talked about they asked him how much you got paid the first job, and I think that went into like 3 different stories for like 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah.
Then he forgot what the question was.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that was winning the press conference. Obviously, is a Cleveland thing, and I think he actually won that. I would say, at least over to the media. But all that matters is obviously on the field. So let's talk about what he's going to bring. In terms of scheme and kind of how his coaching is, it's gotta be a 180, right? It is.
Yeah.
It is a complete flip from what we've seen from Joe Woods. Joe Woods was a lot of zone coverage, off man coverage, relied on his secondary to kind of just play in zone, and he didn't really use much disguise or anything. On the contrary, Jim Schwartz, I think it was like top 10 every year he was in the coaching. He's been in man coverage in top 10 frequency. And he relies heavily on the defensive line. So we'll talk about this in a second about what the team will need. But the defensive line will be a big key for them. He doesn't blitz, so that'll be similar to what Joe Woods did. He didn't blitz that much, but the secondary thing is kind of the big difference. He disguises well, which would be a nice change of pace, and the man coverage is kind of the big thing. So just going based off of that, what's your thoughts on just scheme wise and and
Well,
what
I
he does.
remember that Super Bowl run. How much publicity was given to his wide nine schemes, and
Right. Yeah.
how the Eagles pass rushers were able to just eat offenses alive with that 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 ideology.
Mhm.
And then you think about it and you apply that to Myles Garrett, who is far better than any of those guys that they had.
Yeah.
And like Myles Garrett's ceiling might be breaking TJ Watt's record
Right.
if he stays healthy and the rest of the defense performs around him. You're talking about a guy who can make the jump from 16, 17 and a half sacks to 23.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's like that. That's the kind like, and the added on bonus to that is that the people who think that Myles Garrett isn't worth what we're paying him or should be traded this offseason for picks because we need to recoup picks from the Deshaun Watson thing can just stop.
Right. Yeah. The thing that I got from his press conference was also like he puts a lot of emphasis on getting good opportunities for his defensive linemen, which is going to be a great thing because obviously we've seen Myles Garrett just stuck in double teams all his career,
Yeah.
especially under Joe Woods because he wasn't very creative in moving around. Schwartz is known for kind of freeing up, getting his best rusher kind of in advantageous positions. So that's going to be another. Obviously, Myles Garrett has to be one of the happiest guys I would think after this hire
Yeah.
because it just seems like it's a great position to be in for him.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up Taven Bryan's contract if he was a 1 year deal. Yeah, he was only a 1 year deal. So, I mean, you're looking at having probably three new starters in the defensive line.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about that right now. Yeah, because as we said, the defensive line is going to be a huge part of this defense. They're going to have to remake the entire defensive line except for Myles Garrett. Like,
Yeah,
especially a defensive tackle is going to be blown up because it's an
thank God.
important part. Yeah. Right. It was already going to do that, I think, but obviously, under Schwartz, he needs his D line to win because he
Yeah,
doesn't blitz. So he needs his defensive line to win at the point of attack. So
obviously
um,
a big like when you think about his defensive lines, he had
right,
Fletcher Cox, who is
right,
you're not going to get that kind of defensive tackle on the open market probably.
right,
But you're still going to need guys who can both stay in their lane on both on pass downs and run plays,
mm,
and you know be healthy. And that's a hard,
yeah,
hard thing
yeah,
to kind of find. But
right. And they're going to have to get a
how?
rotation too.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
they're
how
going to have
many
to get
times
depth.
last year did we point out? Hey, if the defensive tackles didn't get washed out to where the defensive ends started their rush from,
Right,
Miles would have had a sack. Or, hey, look, that defensive tackle just got blown 3 yards off the ball on a run play.
right.
So,
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting how they handle it. I think Taven Bryan. I don't. I'm gonna look up his contract now, but
it was 1 year, $4 million.
okay,
So,
that's why I thought.
yeah, so
So
he's up, but they
I
could.
would
I
think
mean,
like
they could bring him
there's
back if they want.
he would, yeah, he would be a good rotational guy because they're gonna need it. As we said,
Yeah,
it's heavy. It's gonna be a heavy defensive line, so they're gonna
and obviously you're still gonna have you're not complete it's not Miles in the room alone right now.
right. No, yeah,
All of the Fresh Prince of Bel Air meme. Like this
right.
is like
It's
you still
basically
have.
pushing everybody back, but
Yeah, you still
you're gonna be in
have
the second
Alex
line.
Wright who played well at the end of the season.
Yeah.
You still have Perrion Winfrey who played well at the end of the season. Like
Mhm.
and maybe someone like Jim Schwartz can get Perrion Winfrey to kind of figure out his
Play more controlled.
antics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both
um
on and off the field.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's the kind of voice you need when you have young guys that
Yeah.
just need the push, and it didn't feel like Joe Woods had that. He
No.
just wasn't that kind of coach, and that's not necessarily something you can fault him for. He's just not like that's like saying Kevin Stefanski needs to be up in someone's face. Like that's just not
Right.
him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of remaking of the front seven.
I think that it was already number one priority. It's like number one, and then you got quite a few spaces between the next priority because it's definitely it's going to be. They got to hit it with the draft. They got to hit it with free agency, maybe even trade. Like they gotta use a lot of their resources this offseason to kind of remake this defense, at least the starting defensive line, because they need it.
Yeah, and because of the depth issues that are going to scare Andrew Berry until his dying day, you need to probably pick up some linebackers too.
Yeah. Ones that can stay healthy.
I mean, not even ones that can stay healthy. You just need to have backups that are serviceable. And you have a couple. You could bring back Deion Jones. I think he's a free agent. Yeah. You can bring back, I think Tony Fields is still going to be on the team. Anthony Walker is going to be a free agent again, but he's coming off a torn quad, so he might not be that expensive as someone who's, I think, either approaching 30 or just north of it. And obviously, I think the defense suffered greatly by not having Anthony Walker out there past week 3.
Yeah, he would definitely be on the list.
I think he was that voice that we were talking about that they lacked.
Right.
He was that vocal leader on the field, and they didn't have him from week 4 to week 18.
Right. Yeah, I think he would be a good guy to bring back. Obviously, I don't think it's gonna really this hire. I don't think it's gonna really change Barry's opinion of kind of paying high price for a linebacker. But I think it does. He will get more depth on the linebacker core. I would assume. Obviously, they had historic injury luck on this.
Yeah, just the level of the amount of linebacker injuries they had. The fact that you're down to starting like Grant Delpit. And
yeah, I think they lost 5 linebackers.
5 linebackers for the season, and then a whole bunch of them got hurt towards the end of the year.
Right.
Too.
Yeah. So obviously, you can't really like prepare for that sort of loss, but it's definitely something they'll have to look into. But the big thing, besides the defensive line, is going to be the safety position. We didn't talk about this. Jim Schwartz is a single high safety defense. He likes to run that. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do at safety. John Johnson, is he a free agent or?
I'm pulling up his thing right now. Sport Track is being slow today. He has an out this year.
Yeah, and I think it seems likely that they take that out because he's being very overpaid right now comparatively to what his production has been on the field.
Yeah.
And so I think single high safety is going to be kind of another maybe number 2 priority this offseason.
Yeah.
Because Delpit seems like the guy to be hit the box safety in this defense. They just need a guy, kind of a rover over the top. There is quite a few kind of guys out in free agency, I believe. I think Poyer is a free agent.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be a fun comeback.
I don't know how much he has left. He's been hurt, and he's kind of up there now.
Yeah, he had a serious injury this year. What was the other name? Can't think
Jesse
of
Bates.
Jesse Bates. Yeah, that's the number 1 guy on the free agent market.
Yeah, Von Bell is also a free agent.
Yeah,
the Bengals have some choices to make.
Right.
Yeah,
Bates would be like kind of an ideal one, obviously, but
could bring back Jabril Peppers. He might not be expensive.
Yeah. Right.
That'd be kind of funny.
He played in Timbuktu already, so
yeah.
Yeah, single high safety is going to be another key to kind of adding to this defense. But it's just it's going to be the higher kind of. Besides what we've talked about, what they need, but I really think this hire of Schwartz kind of fits this defense so much better, especially in the secondary. Mm-hmm. How many times did we talk about that? Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, bless you. Greg Newsome,
couldn't find
Denzel
the
Ward.
fast enough.
Denzel Ward, um, and the rest of the corner, even Martin Emerson, how good they are in man coverage, but they're forced to kind of play in this off coverage zone defense. I think moving to what Schwartz does in man coverage is going to improve their performance, even though they played pretty well. I think it just seems like this what Schwartz does fits what the personnel does as well, which
Yeah,
is nice to see coming from a defense that did not fit the personnel very well.
no, and this is also a coach that is going to do the thing that we've wanted Joe Woods to do, is match the defense to the
Right.
scheme, or
Yeah.
match the scheme to the defense. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we can imagine Miles Garrett in a wide 9, but if they run that a week and it sucks, then they're probably not going to do it again.
Right. Yeah.
Unless they have the personnel to do it. They had the personnel in Philly because, again, they had Fletcher Cox, who is really freaking good at being a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
So, this is the quintessential quote unquote adult in the room in terms of being a defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And whether or not Brian Flores was the top option, I think this bringing in Schwartz is the long-term option if you plan on having this staff together for 3 to 4 more years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before you need to evaluate it again.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I just can't. I'm very excited about the hire. It was Flores was probably my number one choice, but I think he might be even headed to a head coaching position this year.
Yeah.
So I'm not shocked by him not coming here. And you bring up a good thought of if we did hire him, we might have to go through this process next year. So
Yeah.
I in the end, I really like what Schwartz brings. I liked his thoughts on it. Like he's it's kind of funny. Like people, there's like this talk of they didn't want another nerd. Another nerd,
and they found one anyway.
And they found one anyway. They
found one that doesn't talk like one.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really funny. It's they kind of bridge the gap there. But yeah, that was funny. Yeah, his it just I'm excited to see what he can do this defense. I'm excited to see what Myles Garrett can do in a wide 9 position, and kind of it's gonna be fun to see. It's gonna be fun to see. It seems like it's gonna be an aggressive defense in terms of just coverages and disguise and all that. So it's gonna be kind of cool to see actual, not guys just roaming wide open underneath.
Yeah,
every single play.
It'll be fun to not see a whole bunch of coverage busts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like, oh, weren't you supposed to get him? Like, no, like this is actually my guy. So, I think some of the communication stuff, and a lot of the guys talked about it afterwards, after the season. Like, some of the problems was that the defensive scheme didn't allow them to play like who they were. I think they used the word like they didn't allow them to be themselves.
Yeah,
I think that was kind of lending towards like playing man coverage, not playing towards like a zone and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see how Denzel and Newsome and Martin kind of fit into this defense, and I'm excited to see what they add to the defense, especially in the defensive line. But yeah, I'm excited for the hire.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much else to say.
Right.
I don't think I haven't seen any detractors on social media or in the media in the last day and a half. I think you probably would have seen them if they had gone with Desai, because that's just hiring Joe Woods with another name to some people.
Right. Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is the hire that, I mean, it just makes the most sense. If you're not going to be able to get Brian Flores for whatever reason, whether or not it's because you don't want to have to do this again next year, or it's because he just thinks he can be the head coach of the Cardinals.
Right.
Then like this was the right call, and I don't think there's really any other way you can spin it.
Yep. Yeah. So that's our thoughts on the hire of Jim Schwartz. We'll be back sometime in the off season here, probably.
We'll see you in 6 weeks.
Right.
Free agency.
We're going to Groundhog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's free agency?
It's usually the first week of March.
March.
Let me
March.
let me see what it is.
It's usually right. It's like right during March Madness. I always remember that.
You know.
So, we'll be back then, kind of breaking down all that, and then throughout the draft process and all that.
March 15th.
March 15th.
League year starts on March 15th.
Yes. So, any other breaking news? I don't see much of besides kind of maybe some position coaches on the defense. That'll be just before we get out of here. That'll be interesting to see how much change happens there. I know Jim Schwartz during the press conference was asked that, and he said it's up to Kevin and Andrew and all those guys. So it'll be interesting to see if they.
I'm sure he has his guys. I'm sure he has a list of people.
It seemed like coach talk. It seemed like kind of politically correct and kind of not throwing the guys that are on the team still under the bus. Like, hey, you're about to be fired soon here.
Yeah, there's an aura of that. There's an aura of, nope, I'm not falling for the trick that you think I have more authority than the head coach.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So
he's been a head coach. He knows what that is.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, kind of follow that over the next couple of weeks. But other than that, we appreciate you joining us on this Wednesday, following the press conference of Jim Schwartz as the new defensive coordinator. Follow us on Facebook and all the social media networks, and you can see when we're next going to be on. But you definitely around free agency time, we'll probably talk about what we need and all that. But yeah, this is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, and we're part of the Evergreen Podcast Networks. So thanks for joining us, everybody, and go Browns.